AI indeed has become a transformative force in warfare, and its integration into military settings represents a powerful shift towards enhancing operational efficiency, decision making, and strategic capabilities to enable faster and more precise responses to evolving national security threats around the globe. There are 6 key areas where AI is being used in military applications. The first key area is intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, known as ISR. AI's ability to process immense volumes of data has elevated ISR operations to unprecedented levels of efficiency and precision in different ways. A, in image and video analysis. AI systems process high-resolution images and videos from satellites and drones to detect threats. These algorithms identify patterns, anomalies, and objects of interest, be it enemy movements, missile installations, or unusual troop concentrations. For example, Project Maven uses AI to analyze drone footage detecting insurgents or hidden weapon stockpiles. And the advantage is that such systems can reduce human overload, speed up detection, and minimize errors. B, in real-time monitoring. By integrating data from sensors and drones and satellites, AI can provide actionable intelligence in real time. For example, platforms like Palantir create a unified operational picture for commanders using tools like facial recognition and heat signatures. And C, in predictive analytics. Machine learning can predict threats by analyzing historical and real-time data and weather patterns and enemy behavior. For example, AI is able to forecast potential ambushes based on terrain analysis and past insurgent activities. The key challenge of the use of AI and ISR, however, is that AI's effectiveness hinges on data quality, so poor or incomplete data can lead to inaccurate assessments. The second key area is autonomous and semi-autonomous systems. AI can power autonomous systems that reduce human exposure to danger while enhancing operational efficiency, such as A, unmanned aerial vehicles known as UAVs, where AI-driven drones are used to conduct reconnaissance, surveillance, and precision strikes. A good example would be the MQ-9 Reaper drones, which autonomously navigate and identify targets. B, unmanned ground vehicles known as UGVs. They're used to clear mines, dispose bombs, and carry supplies in dangerous zones. An example would be the Mars robot, which can support infantry with payload transport and enemy engagement. C, autonomous naval vessels, where AI-controlled ships patrol, detect underwater mines, and assist anti-submarine operations. An example would be DARPA's Sea Hunter, which can perform long-range surveillance autonomously. And D, loitering munitions, or AI-guided kamikaze drones designed to strike high-value targets. An example would be Israel's Harop drone, which can autonomously locate and destroy radar systems. The key challenge of using AI in autonomous and semi-autonomous systems, however, is the ethical implications of autonomous lethal decision-making, which remain deeply controversial. The third key area is command and control. AI can support commanders by analyzing complex data and delivering actionable insights that provide advantages for A, battlefield coordination. AI integrates inputs from ground forces, air support, and naval units into a unified view of the battlefield. For example, NATO uses AI to coordinate multi-domain operations across air, land, and sea. B, for decision support. Algorithms simulate scenarios to help commanders evaluate risks and choose optimal strategies. For example, AI models can recommend troop movements or timing for airstrikes. And C, for automated resource management. AI can optimize the allocation of fuel, ammunition, and personnel to maximize efficiency. But the key challenge of using AI for command and control is that human oversight is crucial and AI lacks contextual understanding. The fourth key area is cybersecurity and cyber warfare. AI is pivotal in safeguarding cyber infrastructure and executing offensive, defensive, and information cyber strategies. For defensive cybersecurity, AI can detect and neutralize cyber threats by analyzing network traffic and identifying anomalies. For example, systems like Darktrace can adapt to new hacking techniques in real time. For offensive cyber operations, AI can target vulnerabilities in adversary systems and disrupt their communication and logistics. And C, in information warfare, AI can spread or counter disinformation and monitor social media to influence adversaries' decision-making. The key challenge to using AI in cybersecurity and cyber warfare, however, is that offensive cyber operations raise ethical questions, especially concerning civilian infrastructure. The fifth key area is logistics and maintenance. AI can ensure readiness by optimizing maintenance, supply chains, and logistics through predictive maintenance. Sensors and equipment can analyze data to predict failures, which enables timely repairs. For example, the F-35 fighter jets monitor their engine health with AI. Through supply chain optimization, AI can streamline supply delivery to troops in remote or contested areas. And C, through autonomous logistics, where AI-powered drones and robotic vehicles can transport essential supplies to frontline units. Lastly, the sixth key area is training and simulation. AI-powered systems can prepare soldiers for the complexities of modern warfare through different means. Virtual reality training, or VR, where immersive simulations train soldiers for combat, for disaster response, or equipment operation. Wargaming and strategy development, where AI simulates large-scale conflicts, allowing planners to test their strategies. And through C, personalized training, where AI tailors training programs to the individual strengths and weaknesses of soldiers to prepare them for war. But while AI offers transformative capabilities, its use also raises significant questions and concerns around accountability, ethics, bias, reliability, and escalation risks. Questions such as who bears responsibility when AI systems make mistakes? Concerns like the deployment of autonomous weapons, which pose moral dilemmas, biased training data that can lead to misidentifications and errors, and AI's use in military settings that can lower the threshold for conflict escalation. Therefore, effective integration of AI in military settings requires a balance between technological advancements and adherence to humanitarian principles to address these significant concerns and serious questions, especially in conflicts and cases such as how Israelis' use of AI dangerously diverges from typical uses without robust oversight or legal and ethical considerations. Israel's use of AI diverges from typical uses in military settings mainly due to its strategic, geopolitical, and operational context, and its focus on rapid, localized, and real-time operations that tailor AI for conducting urban combat, integrating military applications with civilian surveillance, and increasing operational autonomy through autonomous and semi-autonomous systems. Before I get into the details of the AI military use, I want to talk about Israel's motives and operational context because it's extremely important to understand. Firstly, as an occupying force and a colonial expansionist entity in the Levant and the Middle East region, Israel seeks to control and subjugate its geopolitical environment, which is evident in its 77 years long aggressions against Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and other neighboring states. Within this geopolitical context and constant threat landscape, the colonial entity also seeks to protect its security from the indigenous population's resistance to its illegal invasions, occupation, ethnic cleansing, and colonization of their lands, which shapes its reliance on AI for security and military purposes. Secondly, the small geographical area and proximity of threats require rapid detection, decision-making, and response or attacks. So this persistent state of conflict drives innovation and real-time intelligence, and it motivates Israel to integrate AI extensively into its military doctrine as a force multiplier, emphasizing preemptive and precision operational strategies to address security challenges efficiently and to also execute its colonial objectives through technological superiority. Now, let's talk about the scale of Israel's AI deployment and how it diverges from typical uses in 6 key areas of deployment, starting with key area number 1, surveillance and intelligence, where Israel leverages AI extensively for multiple functions. A, for facial recognition and monitoring. AI-powered systems analyze data from cameras, drones, and digital footprints, especially in regions like the West Bank and Gaza. For example, tools like Red Wolf are used at checkpoints to identify individuals and manage security issues. B, for real-time intelligence. Systems like Project Edge integrate data from satellites, drones, and ground sensors to deliver real-time situational awareness to soldiers. And C, for predictive analytics. By analyzing historical and live data, AI can predict potential threats such as rocket launch sites or infiltration routes. But unlike typical uses that employ AI for broader intelligence operations, Israel's focus is hyper-localized and tailored to densely populated and occupied civilian areas. Key area number 2 is autonomous and semi-autonomous systems such as drones and robotics. AI-enhanced drones like the Harrow loitering munition can autonomously identify and engage targets. Ground robotics, such as the Jaguar UGV, also play critical roles in border patrol and high-risk combat zones, reducing human exposure. However, Israel often uses semi-autonomous systems, allowing for rapid attacks with limited human intervention, which diverges from typical uses and global norms that prioritize strict human oversight. Key area number 3 is multi-domain operations. Israel uses AI to integrate intelligence across land, air, sea, cyber, and even space in order to automate attacks or responses and to streamline its operations. However, its use diverges from what's typical, not necessarily in how AI is deployed in multi-domain operations, but in how fast it can be deployed. And back to operational context, Israel's compact geography and constant state of readiness for conflict have enabled much faster adoption and deployment of AI for multi-domain strategies that surpasses larger nations in flexibility and agility. Key area number 4 is cyber and offensive operations. AI plays a pivotal role in Israel's cyber warfare strategies in ways that enhance its ability to identify vulnerabilities and execute offensive cyber attacks with precision. How such deployment diverges from typical use? Compared to many nations and other entities, Israel places a heavier emphasis on cyber capabilities than most, which underscores its focused prioritization to achieve technological dominance. Key area number 5 is defense innovation ecosystem. Israel benefits from the close collaboration between its military and its civilian tech sector, including AI startups and research institutions, which drives rapid AI innovation. In this case, technologies developed for defense often transition into civilian sectors, which blurs the boundaries between military and commercial innovation. This tight civilian and military integration into the national defense doctrine is a divergent model compared to many countries where military and civilian R&D efforts are typically often siloed. And key area number 6 is occupation and population control. Israel uses AI to monitor and profile the movements of the entire Palestinian population, which raises serious questions and concerns about privacy and human rights. These AI-powered surveillance systems facilitate a digital occupation, adding to the physical and military occupation, which embeds systemic control across occupied Palestine. Another aspect to the occupation is Israel's oppression and violence against the Palestinian population and its use of AI to target their populated areas. Israel, of course, claims that its AI systems guide precision strikes to minimize civilian harm. However, its constant targeting and harm of civilians in densely populated areas like Gaza and the West Bank or Beirut and other towns during its wars against Lebanon challenge these claims. How such deployment diverges? Again, the use of AI for civilian population surveillance and control in occupied regions and for targeting highly populated civilian areas is not only atypical, it's also illegal, immoral, and unethical, which makes Israel a global outlier. Therefore, Israel's use of AI in military settings raises significant ethical and legal questions, particularly concerning accountability, transparency, and compliance with international law. Its opaque deployment of AI complicates accountability for errors, such as civilian casualties, while its limited transparency and review processes exacerbates these concerns, and its frequent violations of international humanitarian law further underscore the difficulty of ensuring ethical AI use. There are also broader implications, which sets dangerous global precedents. A key concern is the normalization of AI-driven warfare, as Israel's reliance on autonomous systems risks lowering the threshold for conflict escalation and reshaping the norms of warfare. Also, despite claims of precision, AI systems lack the capacity for contextual understanding or nuanced ethical judgment, which has led to significant civilian harm, undermining the narrative of ethical warfare. All these issues combined underscore the urgent need for robust international frameworks to govern AI use in conflict zones and ensure accountability, proportionality, and compliance with humanitarian law. And finally, when viewed through the lens of settler colonialism, such as the case of Israel's nature, it becomes clear how its divergent strategies are tied to objectives of territorial expansion and systemic marginalization of indigenous populations. Therefore, moving forward, it's imperative to balance innovation with robust oversight to ensure technological advancements serve humanity without compromising fundamental ethical principles or international law, especially when AI is employed by occupying or colonial regimes with a history of oppression and a proven record of violating humanitarian and international laws over and over again. In November 2023, Plus 972 magazine and Local Call published a joint report on Israel Defense Force targeting operations, labeling them a mass assassination factory. And that is mainly due to the use of all these different AI tools. So first, let's start by talking about Lavender AI. Lavender AI is a system developed by the military to rapidly process vast amounts of data to identify and generate thousands of potential bombing targets. It basically functions as a human bottleneck in expediting target identification and strike approval. The system was first unveiled in April 2024 when 6 Israeli intelligence officers with direct experience during the genocide in Gaza were interviewed by the local magazine Plus 972. The Lavender software collects and analyzes data on nearly all Gaza residents using mass surveillance systems. It then assigns each person a score from 1 to 100 based on estimating their likelihood of being a militant or connected to Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad (PIJ) activities. The system is trained using data profiles of known Hamas or PIJ operatives to identify common characteristics referred to as features. If individuals are identified with multiple such features, they are automatically assigned higher scores and flagged by the system as potential targets for assassination. And we could see how this approach is extremely dangerous because you are trying to identify people based on characteristics and features that could be applied to a wide range of individuals. They don't have to be militants in order to have these features. Now, according to the reports by Plus 972 magazine and Local Call, the Israeli military heavily relied on Lavender AI during the initial stages of its assault on Gaza, marking up to 37,000 Palestinians and their homes for possible airstrikes with minimal human oversight. Officers treated AI-generated outputs as definitive decisions, performing only basic verifications, such as confirming that the target's gender is male, before approving strikes within only seconds. And this occurred despite the system's known 10% error rate and the repeated incidents of targeting individuals with no connection to militant groups or military activities. The high demand for targets and Lavender's statistical approach prioritized rapid strikes over precision, leading to significant civilian casualties, as we have witnessed. Next, let's talk about the gospel. The gospel was first revealed in an investigation also by Plus 972 magazine and Local Call in November 2023, and also in Israeli military publications before the unveiling of Lavender AI. However, there is a fundamental difference between the two systems. Lavender identifies individuals for targeted killings, while the gospel marks private residences, buildings, and other structures that the military claims militants operate from. Israel then conducts large-scale assassination operations through heavy shelling of these locations, deliberately killing civilians and wiping out entire families. In cases involving Lavender-designated targets, the army intentionally used unguided munitions or dung bombs, which destroy entire buildings and cause significant human loss. One intelligence officer explained this choice by stating, and I quote, "You don't want to waste expensive bombs on unimportant people. It's very expensive for the country, and there's a shortage of smart bombs." End quote. So this is the mentality the military is operating from, dehumanizing the Palestinian population to the point of considering them unimportant people that are worthy of being killed, regardless. Furthermore, two sources revealed that during the early weeks of the war, the army established guidelines allowing for the killing of up to 20 civilians per Lavender-marked target. And for high-ranking officials, the military permitted strikes that killed over 100 civilians to assassinate a single resistance commander. That's how inhumane this approach is. Next, where is Daddy? Whereas Daddy is another AI tool used by the Israeli military to systematically target individuals, primarily at night when they were at home with their families. The tool tracks the location of a person's phone, and when it detects the phone at his designated residence, it alerts military personnel who then bomb the home, killing everyone inside of it. Reports from Plus 972 magazine revealed that military officials admitted to deliberately targeting family homes because it was a quicker and easier option. And as a result, thousands of Palestinians, most of them women, children, and other non-combatants, were killed in airstrikes, particularly during the early weeks of the genocide. This approach was evidently intended to amplify civilian casualties, wiping out entire families to inflict maximum devastation. In summary, Lavender AI marked tens of thousands of Palestinians as targets, and Where's Daddy tracked them and alerted the military when they entered their homes. Then these strikes were carried out using unguided munitions, with military officers approving attacks within seconds without verifying real-time intelligence. So the Army's loosening of restrictions on the permissible number of civilian casualties per target, coupled with the automated software's miscalculations, led to devastating civilian losses that were later dismissed as collateral damage. This blatant disregard for the principle of proportionality under international law has drawn widespread condemnation, but it never amounted to any actions to stop Israel. There is one more tool used by Israel in Gaza I'd like to mention that people aren't as familiar with. It's called Arbol. Arbol is an AI tool designed to convert machine guns and other weapons into computerized killing systems using algorithms to enhance accuracy and efficiency. It was co-developed by Indian company Adani Defense and Aerospace with Israel Weapon Industries, IWI, and it was first unveiled in October 2022 at the Def Expo in Gandhinagar in India, where it was promoted and hailed by Indian media as India's first AI-based firing system. However, 6 months into the genocide in Gaza, IWI introduced Arbol as the first computerized weapon system in April 2024, omitting any mention of its Indian co-developer or its unveiling in India 18 months earlier. Reports also indicate that developers didn't disclose that Israeli soldiers had already been using Arbol on the ground since the invasion of Gaza began in October. So India's role in Israel's genocidal war has largely remained in the shadows, as Adani's involvement was intentionally excluded from IWI's marketing to avoid backlash and potential accountability if Israel was to be sanctioned for its crimes. It still prompted Indian activists and lawyers to pressure their government to impose an arms embargo and halt military exchanges with Israel. Yet, Indian companies are continuing to collaborate with Israel with the explicit permission of the Indian government, and these exchanges are expanding rapidly, with India emerging as one of Israel's staunchest defenders to the point of parody, really, even amid the unprecedented horrors we witnessed in Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon. The use of AI in military operations is a rapidly evolving field, with AI technologies such as autonomous drones, surveillance systems, and algorithmic decision-making tools offering unprecedented capabilities. But its role in warfare is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can enhance precision and reduce collateral damage. On the other hand, it can exacerbate harm if used irresponsibly without sufficient oversight, or worse, if it's used with genocidal intent to accelerate a population's destruction, as we've seen in Israel's actions against Gaza and Lebanon. Now, can AI be deployed ethically in warfare? The answer is yes. but only if it's leveraged thoughtfully and responsibly to meet three critical objectives. One, reducing civilian casualties. AI technologies like precision-guided munitions and advanced reconnaissance drones can minimize indiscriminate harm when programmed with strict targeting parameters. Two, minimizing risks to soldiers. By taking on dangerous roles such as bomb disposal or reconnaissance in hostile environments, AI can save human lives. And three, enhancing decision-making. AI's ability to rapidly analyze vast amounts of data can improve situational awareness and assist commanders in making informed decisions. However, ethical deployment extends beyond technical capabilities. It intersects with complex moral, legal, and strategic challenges. Challenge number one is bias and errors. AI systems can inherit biases from their training data or misinterpret complex battlefield dynamics, leading to wrongful targeting. This is especially problematic in dense urban areas such as Gaza or Beirut. So AI must adhere to international humanitarian law, ensuring it can distinguish between combatants and civilians and act proportionately. Challenge number two is decision autonomy versus control. Fully autonomous weapons that select and engage targets without human intervention are controversial because removing human judgment from lethal decisions risk moral disengagement, increased harm, and violations of international law. Challenge number three is accountability. When AI systems fail or cause harm, determining responsibility, whether it lies with developers or operators or commanders, is inherently challenging. Challenge number four is proliferation risks. The dual-use nature of AI allows civilian technologies such as facial recognition to be repurposed for military objectives, often without ethical safeguards. And challenge number five is asymmetry of power. Advanced AI capabilities widen the gap between state and non-state actors, or advanced states versus developing states, leading to disproportionate harm in conflicts where one party lacks comparable technology. To mitigate these risks, we must implement robust oversight mechanisms, including one, international norms and agreements. We need to develop global treaties to regulate military AI akin to arms control agreements. We need to prohibit fully autonomous lethal systems and enforce transparency for states and companies developing military AI. Two, human oversight. We need to maintain human-in-the-loop systems to ensure life and death decisions remain under human control. And we need to require robust review processes for AI recommendations before actions are taken. Three, testing and validation. We need to conduct extensive testing of AI systems in simulated environments to identify risks. And we need to mandate independent audits by neutral third parties to certify compliance with ethical and legal standards. Four, accountability mechanisms for developers, for commanders, and for states. For developers, companies must adopt ethical design principles, build fail-safes, and prioritize proportionality and human rights and harm minimization. For commanders, clear protocols must define the level of oversight required at each stage of AI operation. And for states, governments should update international humanitarian law to address AI-specific challenges and create ethics committees to audit deployments and enforce bans on high-risk systems like killer robots, for example. And lastly, public and international scrutiny. We need to engage civil society, academia, and international institutions in monitoring AI's use and warfare. So open dialogue will be essential for sharing public opinion and policy. It's also important to note that despite the importance of these mechanisms, there are several barriers that complicate their effective implementations. And I'm going to mention 4 of those barriers. Barrier number 1 is geopolitical rivalries. Major powers may resist binding agreements out of fear that restrictions could compromise their strategic advantages. Barrier number 2 is proliferation of technology. The accessibility of AI makes it difficult to prevent misuse by rogue states or non-state actors. Barrier number 3 is lack of enforcement. Even when norms exist, enforcing them across sovereign states is a significant challenge. And barrier number 4 is technical limitations. AI systems require continuous monitoring and updates to prevent errors, and war's unpredictable nature adds another layer of complexity. So addressing these challenges requires collective global action. And a realistic approach includes 1, increasing international cooperation to establish multilateral treaties and clear norms for acceptable behavior in AI-driven warfare. 2, creating technological safeguards to prioritize AI systems that enhance transparency, accountability, and compliance with international humanitarian law. And 3, a commitment to transparency by regularly updating legal frameworks and oversight mechanisms to adapt to the evolving challenges of AI. All that said, Israel's disproportionate actions, unethical methods, and asymmetric warfare in conflicts like in Gaza and Lebanon highlight the urgency of these measures, because without rigorous oversight and a shared moral framework, the global community risks amplifying the devastating consequences of AI and warfare while eroding people's trust in technology's potential to serve humanity rather than cause harm. Before I address the implications for international law, let me first briefly outline the foundational principles of international humanitarian law. These principles that are enshrined in treaties like the Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols, as well as customary international law, exist to limit the effects of armed conflict on people and property. The 10 key principles of international law governing warfare. First, we have the principle of distinction. All parties to a conflict are required to differentiate between combatants and civilians, as well as between military objectives and civilian property. Only combatants and military assets may be targeted. Civilians and their infrastructures are strictly off limits. The second principle is proportionality. Even when targeting legitimate military objectives, harm to civilians and civilian objects must not be excessive compared to the direct military advantage anticipated. So actions that cause disproportionate harm are prohibited. Third, the principle of necessity. Military actions must be essential to achieve a legitimate military objective. Excessive use of force that exceeds what is necessary to achieve that objective is strictly forbidden. 4, the principle of humanity. It requires that the methods and means of warfare do not cause unnecessary suffering. Protecting both combatants and civilians from unnecessary harm is a cornerstone of international law. The 5th principle is precaution. Every feasible measure must be taken to minimize harm to civilians and civilian property. Operations must be planned and executed with great care to avoid unnecessary casualties. 6, principle of non-discrimination. The laws of war must be applied equally to all parties, regardless of race, nationality, religion, or other distinguishing factors. So non-discrimination is critical. Number 7, prohibition of indiscriminate attacks, those that cannot be directed at a specific military target or that use methods incapable of avoiding civilian harm, are forbidden under international law. Number 8, the principle of protection of special groups and objects. Certain groups and objects are given special protection. These include medical personnel, humanitarian workers, prisoners of war, journalists, and cultural or religious sites. All these entities must never be targeted. Number 9, the principle of prohibition of certain weapons. Weapons that cause indiscriminate or long-lasting harm, such as chemical or biological weapons or cluster munitions and landmines, all are prohibited outright. And lastly, the principle of accountability. Violations of international law, such as war crimes, must be investigated and prosecuted. Commanders and leaders are responsible for ensuring compliance, and they can be held accountable for breaches of the law. These internationally recognized principles serve as a moral and legal compass, ensuring that even in the chaos of war, humanity and morality can prevail. They balance military necessity with humanitarian considerations, reminding us of our duty to protect human dignity, minimize suffering, and uphold loyal conduct. So adhering to these principles is not merely a legal obligation, it's a testament to our shared humanity and commitment to a just and compassionate world. Now, let us assess Israel's conduct through these principles, particularly in light of its use of advanced AI systems in Gaza. This raises significant challenges for international law, especially regarding accountability, proportionality, and distinction. We must also view Israel's use of AI within the broader context of its long-standing colonization of Palestine, committing occupation, ethnic cleansing, and genocide of the Palestinian people, with AI technology serving as tools that reinforce and amplify systemic violence and oppression. By automating critical decision-making and operational execution, in this case, AI blurs traditional lines of responsibility, which creates complexities that existing legal frameworks and accountability mechanisms struggle to address. Now, let's break down these implications into 4 major points. 1, within the context of genocide and land appropriation. Israel faces accusations of genocide and systemic violations of international law, including land confiscation, settlement expansion, and the destruction of Palestinian homes and properties. These actions and efforts to displace and marginalize Palestinians violate the Geneva Conventions and other legal frameworks. 2, the role of AI in systemic oppression. AI-powered systems like facial recognition and predictive analytics monitor and restrict Palestinian movements, fostering fear and systemic oppression. AI-guided strikes, justified as precision attacks, disproportionately harm civilians in densely populated areas, which aligns with allegations of targeted violence against Palestinians. And predictive analytics or predictive systems used for population management often identify quote-unquote threats, resulting in unjust mass arrests, displacements, and the erasure of Palestinian identity and presence. 3, AI complicates adherence to and enforcement of international law. When it comes to accountability and transparency, the opacity of AI decision-making processes blurs the responsibility among operators, programmers, and states, which hinders justice. When it comes to the adherence to principles, failures of AI to ensure proportionality and distinction risk indiscriminate harm and potential war crimes. And when it comes to genocide convention obligations, AI's role in systemic violence could amplify actions considered genocidal, requiring international intervention. And 4, global risks and precedents. Israel's use of AI in conflict zones risk normalizing the deployment of such technologies for systemic oppression worldwide. And without regulation, AI could institutionalize structural violence against marginalized populations anywhere in other regions around the globe. To address these challenges, robust international mechanisms are needed. And I'm going to mention three main mechanisms. Mechanism number one is strengthening legal frameworks. Regulations must ensure AI complies with humanitarian principles and ethical norms. Mechanism number two is demanding transparency. Israel must disclose its AI methodologies and ensure adherence to international standards. And mechanism number three is ensuring accountability. Clear liability mechanisms are essential for addressing violations facilitated by AI, including prosecution in international courts. To conclude on that, the integration of AI into Israel's military operations in Gaza and other conflicts underscores the urgent need for robust international regulation and oversight. These technologies, when used to reinforce policies of systemic violence, displacement, and genocide, cannot be treated as neutral tools. Without proactive measures and adherence to ethical principles and standards, AI risks undermining foundational principles of international law and becoming an unchecked tool for perpetuating violence, injustice, and mass human rights violations. So our accountability is clear: to protect human dignity and to uphold justice in the face of evolving technological challenges. As AI systems increasingly take on roles traditionally held by humans and become more integrated into military operations, military personnel may face significant psychological shifts and new ethical challenges as they grapple with complex moral questions surrounding the use of these technologies. To break down these aspects, and I'm going to focus on four main aspects. Firstly, when it comes to psychological impacts, impact number one is trust and decision-making anxiety. As AI assumes more complex tasks, military personnel may feel uncertain and uneasy about relying on these systems, particularly in high-stakes or high-pressure situations. This reliance can trigger significant anxiety, especially in life or death scenarios where the unpredictability of AI's critical decisions amplifies fears of losing control. Impact number two is desensitization and dehumanization of warfare. AI can alter how soldiers perceive war, potentially causing emotional detachment from the consequences of their actions. As tasks like surveillance, targeting, and decision-making become increasingly automated, military personnel may become desensitized to the human cost of war. While this shift could reduce the emotional burden on operators, it also risks disconnecting them from the reality of their actions, making war feel more abstract and less human. And impact number three is role ambiguity and identity shifts. With AI systems replacing certain roles, military personnel may struggle to define or redefine their responsibilities and purpose within the military. This could lead to feeling obsolete or confused, and it ultimately affects their sense of identity and value within the military structure. Secondly, when it comes to ethical dilemmas, dilemma number one is accountability. Accountability is one of the most significant ethical challenges posed by AI in military operations. When an AI system makes a flawed decision or causes harm, potentially even violating international law, it becomes unclear who should bear responsibility. Is it the operator or the developers or the AI system itself? This ambiguity disrupts traditional principles of human accountability, creating a complex ethical landscape where assigning blame or responsibility for mistakes becomes increasingly difficult. Dilemma number 2 is the use of autonomous weapons. The use of AI-controlled weapons raises serious moral questions about machines deciding who lives and who dies. Such autonomy challenges ethical boundaries, as the very idea of AI making life or death decisions contradicts deeply rooted ethical principles regarding human dignity and the sanctity of life. So for military personnel, reconciling the notion of machines making these critical choices can be both ethically troubling and emotionally complex. And ethical dilemma number 3 is bias and fairness. AI systems are only as unbiased as the data they are trained on. If these systems inherit biased data, they can produce unfair or discriminatory outcomes, particularly in areas like targeting, surveillance, or intelligence gathering. This raises concerns about the fairness and integrity of AI-driven military decisions, especially when those decisions affect people based on race, nationality, cultural background, or political affiliation. Thirdly, when it comes to the relationship between soldiers and AI, challenge number 1 is trust and cooperation. For AI to be effective in the military, soldiers need to trust it. If they believe AI is reliable and accurate, they are more likely to embrace it. However, if AI systems fail or make mistakes, such inconsistencies could erode trust, creating tension and hindering the effective integration of AI into operations. And relationship challenge number 2 is the balance of power. There is a delicate balance between granting AI systems autonomy and maintaining human control. If AI systems are given too much autonomy, over-reliance on them could erode human agency, creating a sense that humans are losing control over critical decisions. On the other hand, if AI is too tightly controlled, its potential to process vast amounts of data or make decisions and respond quickly may become limited. And lastly, when it comes to the implications of AI for military strategy and the future of warfare, implication number 1 is changing the dynamics of combat and enabling new ways of fighting. AI has the potential to revolutionize military strategy by making warfare more precise, faster, and more strategic. And while this could improve efficiency, it also introduces the risk of rapid AI-driven escalation, where machines dictate the course of conflict without sufficient human oversight, potentially leading to unpredictable outcomes. And implication number 2 is shifting military culture. As AI takes on more roles traditionally filled by humans, the focus within military culture may shift from leadership skills to technical expertise. And this could transform the hierarchical structure of the military, elevating the importance of understanding AI and technology over having battlefield experience or reliance on human soldiers for certain tasks. All that said, as military personnel increasingly interact with AI systems, their psychological and ethical relationship with these technologies will continue to evolve. And to navigate these changes and ensure AI is used responsibly, it is critically important to address issues of accountability, fairness, and the human cost of automated warfare. Balancing military objectives with ethical principles will be essential in integrating AI in ways that align with moral standards and the reality of modern warfare. The 5 key security enhancements we can achieve with AI in global supply chains and critical infrastructure. 1, in predictive analytics and risk management. AI enables us to analyze vast amounts of data, identifying potential disruptions in global supply chains. It also helps us anticipate risks and proactively address them to ensure operational continuity, whether it's natural disasters or geopolitical tensions or supplier vulnerabilities. 2, in automation and optimization. Through AI, we can automate inventory management, optimize transportation routes, and predict demand patterns. These advancements not only improve efficiency and cut costs, but also make our supply chains more resilient to overseen challenges. 3, in cybersecurity improvements. AI plays a critical role in monitoring networks in real time, detecting anomalies that could signal cyber attacks. With machine learning, we can identify new and evolving threats more effectively, which helps us stay a step ahead of malicious actors. 4, in quality control and maintenance. AI empowers us with predictive maintenance capabilities, allowing us to address equipment issues before they escalate. Additionally, it enhances quality control by identifying defects with unparalleled precision. And 5, in transparency and traceability. AI enables us to track goods across supply chains, reducing risks such as fraud, theft, or counterfeit products. Also, when integrated with blockchain, AI further enhances transparency and accountability, providing us with a more secure and trustworthy system. Next, we must also recognize the disruptions AI can introduce, which we must guard against. 1, cyber attacks on critical systems. Malicious actors can leverage AI to exploit vulnerabilities in supply chains and transportation systems and in energy grids. Tools like adaptive malware or advanced phishing campaigns make these threats even more dangerous. 2, supply chain sabotage. The misuse of AI can identify and exploit weak points in logistics. For example, tampering with autonomous vehicles and drones or smart warehouses could lead to significant disruptions. 3, spread of misinformation. AI-powered misinformation campaigns can destabilize operations by spreading panic or creating false signals about shortages and disruptions, undermining trust and security. And 4, espionage and data breaches. AI can be weaponized to infiltrate networks, extract sensitive data, and gain strategic insights into supply chains or critical infrastructures. Finally, let's discuss how we can prevent the misuse of AI and ensure its use responsibly. 1, by strengthening cybersecurity. We need advanced AI-driven threat detection and response systems to protect networks and infrastructure. Regular updates, patches, multi-factor authentication, and encryption must become standard practices to safeguard sensitive systems. 2, by developing regulations and policies. Clear and enforceable regulations governing AI use and critical infrastructure are essential. International collaboration is also crucial to establish treaties and agreements that deter state-sponsored misuse of AI. 3, by ensuring transparency and ethics. Transparency in AI development is vital. Algorithms must be explainable and auditable, and ethical guidelines for AI use in sensitive areas must be established to prevent misuse. 4, by collaborating and sharing information. Public-private partnerships are key to sharing knowledge about emerging threats and best practices, and industry-wide standards will ensure the safe and effective implementation of AI technologies. 5, by building resilience and redundancy. Systems must include redundancies to reduce the impact of disruptions. Diversified sourcing and decentralized networks can minimize reliance on single points of failure. 6, by governance and oversight. Dedicated oversight bodies should monitor AI use in critical sectors and conduct regular audits to ensure compliance with ethical and security standards. And lastly, and most importantly, by educating and training. We need to train workers and critical sectors to recognize and respond to AI-related threats. Public awareness initiatives will also prepare society for the implications of AI misuse. Therefore, by adopting these strategies, we can harness the full potential of AI to strengthen global supply chains and critical infrastructure while safeguarding against its use and creating a more secure and resilient future for all of us. This is a complex question that's going to require me to elaborate. Let me first talk about how manufacturing, logistics, and technologies are being repurposed to inflict harm. Then I'll discuss the pagers attack in Lebanon. First, let's consider manufacturing technologies. 3D printing originally developed to streamline prototyping and manufacturing. Unfortunately, this technology has been misused. It has enabled the creation of untraceable firearms, commonly referred to as ghost guns, as well as other components for weaponry. Robotics, designed to improve automation and efficiency, they've made incredible strides in industries like healthcare and manufacturing. However, this technology can be weaponized, for instance, through the use of autonomous drones for surveillance or even direct attacks. Chemical and biotechnological advances. Advances in manufacturing techniques for industrial chemicals have also been exploited, leading to the production of chemical weapons, which is an alarming and dangerous misuse of innovation. Next, let's examine logistics technologies. Supply chain tracking tools such as RFID tags and IoT devices were created to improve inventory management and shipment tracking. Sadly, these tools can be repurposed for illicit activities such as monitoring targets or enabling smuggling operations. Autonomous vehicles. Logistics, drones, and autonomous vehicles are transforming cargo delivery. However, they can also be adapted to deliver explosives or other harmful payloads, posing a serious security threat. AI and logistics optimization, such as predictive analytics, which optimize supply chain management, can also be used to plan and execute hostile operations with precision. And that's another example of a tool with dual use potential. Finally, let's talk about security technologies. Surveillance systems, cameras, facial recognition, and AI-powered monitoring systems are designed to ensure public safety. Yet, these systems have been abused for mass surveillance, targeting dissidents, and suppressing opposition in some regions. Encryption and cybersecurity tools. While these technologies are crucial for safeguarding sensitive data, they can also provide secure communication channels for malicious actors, enabling organized crime or terrorist activities. And lastly, weaponized cyber tools. Cybersecurity frameworks, which are meant to protect infrastructures, can be reverse engineered to exploit vulnerabilities. This has led to cyber attacks that disrupt critical systems, putting public safety at risk. Therefore, there is a dual-use nature to modern technologies. Tools that were designed to advance manufacturing, logistics, and securities have brought immense benefits to society, but they have also been misused in ways that pose significant risks. So it's critical for policymakers, developers, and users to work together to mitigate risks and ensure these innovations are used responsibly. Now let's dive into the unprecedented pagers and walkie-talkies terror attack in Lebanon. I will outline what happened, how it happened, and the technicalities behind it as well. Here's what happened. On September 17, 2024, a coordinated series of catastrophic explosions devastated Lebanon as thousands of pagers simultaneously detonated across a wide range of civilian settings, including people's homes, cars, supermarkets, hospitals, small businesses, streets, and other public spaces. The following day, September 18, a similar wave of destruction occurred when walkie-talkies exploded across the country, further intensifying the devastation. By the end of the attacks, at least 32 people, including children, had lost their lives, and over 4,000 were injured or maimed. Among the victims, 200 suffered critical injuries, more than 500 sustained severe damage to their faces, eyes, and bodies, and many were left with permanent disabilities. Hospitals were overwhelmed, struggling to manage the massive influx of victims and the severity of their injuries, which left countless families shattered, and it underscored the immense humanitarian toll of these attacks. Although the Lebanese people and authorities knew it was Israel, it wasn't until 2 months later that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly admitted Israel's responsibility for the explosions. Also, investigations conducted by the New York Times and the Washington Post, along with interviews on CBS News with former Mossad agents, unveiled the details of the operation and how these attacks were planned in a joint effort by the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad, Israel's intelligence service, and the Israeli military. Next, let's outline the details of how these attacks happened. Firstly, it's important to recognize that there was a long-term infiltration of the Lebanese resistance Hezbollah. This operation was reportedly part of a broader 20-year strategy aimed at infiltrating and disrupting Hezbollah's communication networks while inflicting widespread destruction in Lebanon. One of the two former Mossad agents who spoke to CBS likened the mission to a meticulously crafted theatrical or film production. He said to CBS News, and I quote, "We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors, the producers, the main actors, and the world is our stage." End quote. His boastful sentiment highlights the intricate web of deception and the extensive use of shell companies to manipulate global supply chains and weaponize communication devices. Between 2015 and 2023, Mossad supplied Hezbollah with over 16,000 booby-trapped walkie-talkies through a fake front company. These devices were designed to appear ordinary, but they concealed explosives embedded within their lithium-ion battery casings, unbeknownst to Hezbollah, of course. In 2022, Mossad expanded its operation to target Hezbollah's growing reliance on low-tech devices, specifically pagers manufactured by the Taiwanese company Gold Apollo. Hezbollah had fully adopted low-tech communication devices by 2024 in February in an attempt to evade Israel's high-tech surveillance. So Mossad exploited this shift to low-tech devices by infiltrating global supply chains, rigging the Gold Apollo pagers with explosives, and selling them through a network of shell companies across multiple countries. Israel first established a shell company in Hungary called BAC Consulting. This company secured a license to manufacture pagers from Gold Apollo and funneled the compromised devices to Hezbollah through intermediaries. Hungarian authorities found no evidence that the rigged devices were manufactured locally, however. Mossad established another shell company in Bulgaria called Norta Global Ltd. It was founded by a Norwegian national. His name is Rania Hoteit, and it facilitated payments and logistics, transferring over 1 million euros to BAC Consulting. They additionally established another company in Hong Kong called Apollo Systems Ltd. This shell company was connected to both Taiwan and Bulgaria, and it handled logistics. But according to investigations, it only shipped one pager to Hungary in 2022, which raises questions about its true role in this operation. After the attacks in Lebanon happened, the Taiwanese company Gold Apollo, which manufactures legitimate pagers, denied involvement, stating that they only manufactured pagers powered by AA battery, not the lithium-based AR-924 models the Mossad weaponized. Taiwanese officials also found no records of exporting Gold Apollo pagers to Hungary in 2023 or 2024. Now let's discuss the details of the design and engineering of these booby-trapped devices. The pagers and walkie-talkies were rigged with PETN embedded within lithium batteries, making the explosives virtually undetectable by standard inspection methods such as X-rays or other imaging technologies. And for your reference, PETN stands for pentyrethritol tetranitrate. It's a powerful, stable, and highly energetic, compact crystalline explosive commonly used in military and industrial applications. Its high energy density allows it to create maximum impact or lethality with minimal quantities. That's why it can be concealed in small spaces like batteries, making detection challenging and making it also ideal for covert operations. Lebanese security officials confirmed that the explosives were seamlessly integrated into the battery casings, rendering detection nearly impossible. Explosives specialist Sean Morehouse also noted that the devices included essential components such as a power source, casing, and communication system to function as an improvised explosive device known as IED. It only required a detonator and an explosive charge, which the Mossad added to complete the weaponization process that turned these seemingly harmless objects into deadly weapons of destruction. For detonation mechanisms, the devices were engineered with dual activation systems: remote detonation triggered via encrypted messages, or manual detonation activated when users pressed buttons to check these encrypted messages. Mossad also added a psychological trigger by programming urgent ringtones to prompt users to interact with the devices and pick them up, ensuring they held them when the explosions occurred. According to Mossad agents, the devices were rigorously tested to guarantee maximum lethality and damage, and they were synchronized to explode at the same time across Lebanon. And to give you a quick overview on the way pagers work, these pagers are 5 centimeters by 8.9 centimeters. They weigh 95 grams and they have lithium-powered batteries that last for about 85 days. Pagers operate on a radio frequency network with unique codes for each device in the network. When a transmitter broadcasts messages across the network, all pagers within range can receive the signal, waiting to read their code. And when the pager reads its own code in the transmission, it receives the message. At this point, with the rigged pagers, the detonations went off. The next layer of manipulation of global supply chains and the infiltration of Hezbollah used by the Mossad was deceptive marketing. Mossad created fake advertising campaigns, including promotional films and brochures, to market the booby-trapped devices as reliable and secure, and to build trust in their potential to be used even for military purposes. Hezbollah unknowingly purchased 5,000 of these compromised Gold Apollo AR-924 pagers from the fake company BAC Consulting, and they were delivered to Lebanon in 2023. The rigged pagers were then distributed among Hezbollah operatives and integrated into their communication network that included both military and civilian users. As Mossad learned that Hezbollah's engineers suspected that the devices are rigged and began inspecting them for tampering, Israel decided to execute the mass explosions across Lebanon. On September 17, 2024, Mossad sent encrypted detonation messages that simultaneously triggered thousands of pagers across Lebanon. The following day, they repeated the same tactic with the booby-trapped walkie-talkies, exploding everywhere and causing widespread terror and civilian harm. Meanwhile, the senior leadership of the Lebanese resistance Hezbollah were unaffected at the time because they had continued using older pager models. I outlined all this information for people to understand the details of what happened and how it happened, because this unprecedented hijacking of global supply chains we all trust and rely on to execute an act of terrorism at such a massive scale has serious global implications that we need to closely analyze and be aware of. Israel's use of exploding pagers in Lebanon raises serious ethical, moral, and legal concerns under international humanitarian law. These attacks not only caused immense physical destruction, but also widespread psychological terror. When we analyze this operation through the legal frameworks of jus ad bellum, targeting principles, and principles of proportionality and other specific treaty obligations, it becomes evident that Israel's attacks constitute severe violations of international humanitarian law, of human rights law, and of ethical standards. So let's comprehensively analyze these concerns and their global implications through 6 key legal frameworks. 1, the legal framework of jus ad bellum, and let me explain what that means. Jus ad bellum is a Latin term that literally means right to war. It refers to the conditions or causes under which states may be considered justified to resort to war or armed force. Jus ad bellum, alongside jus in bello, which is just conduct and war, and jus post bellum, which is justice after war, it forms the framework of just war theory. And these concepts of morally justified wars has persisted since ancient times and remain relevant in modern society. So now that we know what jus ad bellum means, it's the right to war, the primary question becomes whether Israel's use of force against Lebanon were justified, because the legality of its operations hinges on whether its claim of self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter is valid. Israel must prove that Hezbollah's actions are attributable to the Lebanese state to justify its operations and right to war against Lebanon. While Israel may argue that Hezbollah operates as a de facto military force integrated into Lebanon's security framework, experts highlight that Hezbollah has significant autonomy, functioning independently of state-directed policy. Given this insufficient attribution, Israel's claim of self-defense is invalid and its use of force is illegitimate, rendering its actions in Lebanon a violation of the prohibition on the use of force against sovereign states under Article 2, Section 4 of the UN Charter. Moreover, Israel's attacks did not address an imminent threat. They targeted communication devices with the aim to degrade Hezbollah's communication network and operational capacity, rather than addressing direct and immediate threats such as active military objectives or rocket launch sites, for example, which constitute a failure to meet the necessity and proportionality requirements of self-defense, and it further discredits Israel's claims. 2, under the legal framework of targeting principles. The second question becomes whether Israel's actions adhered to the core targeting principles, particularly distinction and discrimination that are designed to protect civilians in armed conflict. In this case, the dual-use nature of pagers and walkie-talkies made them improper targets. Even if Hezbollah had used pagers for military communications, they were not exclusively military objects. Civilians, including medical personnel, logistics workers, security staff, and even children, relied on these devices. Attacking dual-use objects without verifying their immediate military function constitutes a failure to distinguish between civilians and combatants, violating the principle of distinction under Article 48 of Additional Protocol 1 of the Geneva Conventions. Moreover, explosives hidden in pagers detonated remotely or upon use failed to distinguish between combatants and civilians, causing indiscriminate harm and civilian casualties, including children. The widespread use of these devices across Lebanon further compounded the harm and worsened the devastation, leaving many civilians with permanent injuries, disabilities, and deep psychological trauma. Given these facts, Israel's attacks violated Article 51, Section 4 of Additional Protocol 1, which prohibits indiscriminate methods that do not differentiate between combatants and civilians. 3. Under the legal framework of proportionality. The third question becomes whether Israel's actions adhered to the principle of proportionality, which prohibits attacks where civilian harm is excessive relative to the anticipated military advantage. In this case, the operation failed to satisfy this principle for several reasons. If the pagers were considered legitimate military objectives, the excessive harm to civilians, including fatalities and permanent injuries, outweighed any military advantage gained by disrupting Hezbollah's communication network. The inability to ensure that pager and walkie-talkie users were exclusively combatants made the risk to civilians unacceptable. Also, instead of embedding explosives in communication devices that are used by civilians, Israel could have employed less lethal alternatives, such as jamming or intercepting communications. This failure to use alternatives and adopt precautionary measures contravened Article 57 of Additional Protocol 1, which obliges parties to minimize civilian harm. Moreover, exploiting public trust and disguising explosives as civilian objects, such as communication devices or pagers, constitutes perfidy, which is prohibited under Article 37 of Additional Protocol 1. This practice undermines the integrity of international humanitarian law and sets an extremely dangerous precedent for the misuse of civilian technology. 4. Under the legal framework of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, CCW Amended Protocol 2, which prohibits the use of booby traps and other devices. Under Article 7, Section 2 of the Amended Protocol 2 to the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, CCW, booby traps disguised as harmless objects, such as pagers, are explicitly prohibited. These devices were deliberately designed to mislead users into believing they were safe, ordinary communication tools, which clearly violates the protocol and reflects a willful disregard for humanitarian protections. And while the protocol focuses on manually emplaced devices, its intent to prevent harm from deceptive weapons with indiscriminate impact applies here. By using disguised explosives remotely, Israel exploited a potential loophole in the protocol while violating its intent. 5. Under the legal framework of the right to life, which protects civilians, detainees, and those hors de combat or out of the fight, ensuring that no one is arbitrarily deprived of life. The indiscriminate nature of the explosions resulted in the unjustifiable loss of life, ensuring that thousands of non-combatants and innocent civilians, including children, were either killed or left with permanent injuries. The United Nations human rights experts emphasized that these attacks violated the fundamental right to life as protected under international human rights law. civilians were disproportionately affected, and the victims posed no imminent threat at the time, making these attacks absolutely unjustifiable. Lastly, the legal frameworks of the Geneva Conventions, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, the Hague Conventions, and customary international law for war crimes and psychological terror, which prohibit acts that cause unnecessary suffering or deliberately target civilians, non-combatant, and out-of-the-fight combatants. UN experts stated that the operation's design and execution involving the use of explosives targeting civilians, including acts of murder and indiscriminate attacks, resulted in the killing and the injury of thousands of civilians. Many suffered life-altering injuries, such as blindness, disfigurement, and amputations. These grossly disproportionate and unnecessary actions violated fundamental principles of international humanitarian law and constituted war crimes. Article 51, Section 2 of Additional Protocol 1 particularly prohibits acts intended to intimidate and terrorize civilian populations. The deliberate manipulation of everyday objects, such as communication devices, and their coordinated detonation across civilian spaces not only caused physical harm, but also instilled widespread terror in Lebanon, violating the prohibition against terrorizing civilian populations under international humanitarian law. The attack also disrupted daily life and exacerbated the humanitarian crisis, leading to public mistrust in everyday technology by demonstrating how seemingly harmless devices could be weaponized. All that said, by exploiting civilian trust, leveraging deception, hijacking global supply chains, and targeting dual-use objects, this operation's manipulative, unlawful, disproportionate, and indiscriminate nature marks a chilling evolution in asymmetric warfare, and it sets a dangerous precedent for the misuse of civilian technology. It demonstrates a blatant disregard for human life, humanitarian principles, and the legal frameworks designed to protect civilians in times of war, underscoring the necessity of stronger international mechanisms to prevent such crimes in the future. These violations also highlight the urgent need for accountability, justice, and stronger enforcement of international laws to uphold dignity, security, and human rights, even amidst the complexities of modern conflict. The international response to the attack has been unequivocal. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has condemned the operation as a war crime, citing its flagrant violations of international human rights and humanitarian law under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. UN experts further denounced the attacks, emphasizing the indiscriminate and disproportionate harm inflicted on civilians through the use of booby-trapped devices. They also called for a prompt, impartial, and transparent investigation to establish the truth and ensure accountability, stressing the obligation of all states to act under universal jurisdiction to prosecute war crimes. However, despite these condemnations, several critical questions about the operation remain unanswered. The origin of the compromised pagers is still unclear, with Gold Apollo denying involvement despite its licensing agreements with BAC Consulting and Apollo Systems Ltd., which raises significant concern over oversight. Additionally, shell companies such as Norta Global Ltd. And Apollo Systems Ltd., known for their opaque operations and limited physical presence, played pivotal roles in facilitating the attack. The operation's sophistication further suggests state-level coordination, yet the extent of international complicity or negligence, or both, remains under investigation. That said, addressing these gaps require thorough investigations and robust international cooperation to prevent the exploitation of supply chains and the misuse of civilian technology. Given the severity of these violations, the international community must act decisively. A transparent and impartial investigation is imperative to hold those responsible accountable. Additionally, stronger safeguards and regulatory frameworks must be developed to prevent the weaponization of supply chains and technology in order to ensure that such egregious crimes cannot be repeated in the future. Now, how do we develop such frameworks to detect and prevent abuse? First, we must establish international guidelines for the ethical development and use of emerging technologies. These ethical guidelines and standards should include mandatory compliance assessments to ensure adherence. Importantly, oversight bodies must include diverse stakeholders, governments, technologists, ethicists, and civil society representatives, because this diversity will bring balance and inclusivity to decision-making processes. Second, transparency must be a cornerstone of innovation. Clear documentation and traceability of technological advancements and their intended use cases should be a standard requirement. Additionally, open source initiatives should be encouraged, but with built-in safeguards to prevent misuse and malicious exploitation. Third, we need to embed safeguards directly into the design of technologies. Features like geofencing, user authentication, and usage monitoring can prevent abuse. Furthermore, mechanisms should be in place to limit or disable technologies if they are diverted from their original purpose. This safety by design approach can ensure that potential harm is mitigated early on. Fourth, we must employ advanced detection systems. Artificial intelligence and data analytics can identify anomalies in technology usage, such as unusual manufacturing patterns or suspicious supply chain activities. Establishing global repositories of misuse cases will further enhance early warning systems, allowing us to respond quickly to emerging threats. Fifth, international cooperation is non-negotiable. We must strengthen multilateral treaties, such as the Wassenaar Arrangement, to regulate dual-use technologies. Shared databases and rapid response teams should be created to address cross-border misuse effectively as well. Six is accountability measures. Penalties must be implemented for entities that deliberately misuse technologies or facilitate their abuse. At the same time, whistleblower protections should be encouraged to allow individuals to expose misuse without fear of retaliation. And lastly, public awareness and advocacy is essential. Education about the ethical use of technology must be promoted among developers, businesses, and consumers alike. Public campaigns should highlight the dual-use nature of technology and emphasize the need for responsible innovation as well. And some of these frameworks and key points might be redundant to what I mentioned before. But to sum it all up, by aligning innovation with ethical principles and vigilance, we can ensure that technologies uplift humanity rather than harm it. But this will require continuous collaboration, unwavering vigilance, and a collective commitment to prioritizing the common good over individual or political gains. As AI continues to reshape our world, it is imperative that we address its profound impact on society, economics, and geopolitics to guide its development strategically and responsibly. There are 8 key areas that international governance must prioritize to regulate AI use. 1, establishing global norms and ethical standards to ensure AI is used as a force for good. Let's think about it. AI has the potential to solve some of the world's greatest challenges. It can unlock cures for diseases, combat climate change, revolutionize education, and connect humanity in ways we've never seen before. But to achieve this, we must recognize that AI is not just a technological endeavor. It's also a human one. It's about embedding our deepest values of fairness, compassion, and justice into the systems we create. Therefore, we need universally accepted principles to guide the development and use of AI technologies. And these principles should emphasize transparency, accountability, fairness, privacy, and the protection of human rights. International bodies like the United Nations must lead the charge in establishing these frameworks, ensuring that they are inclusive and applicable across borders. Moreover, we must prevent the militarization of AI. Specific norms should regulate the use of AI in military applications, such as autonomous weapons and surveillance systems. We could adapt international treaties like the Geneva Conventions to address AI-specific challenges and uphold humanitarian values in times of conflict. 2, preventing an AI arms race. As AI technologies advance, the risk of an arms race in military and intelligence sectors grows. Just as we have treaties to regulate nuclear weapons, we must consider agreements to control the proliferation of AI-driven weaponry. Transparency mechanisms and limits on developing lethal autonomous weapons are essential in this case. And to ensure compliance, we need independent international bodies to monitor the development of military AI technologies. These organizations would play a critical role in verifying adherence to agreements and preventing the misuse of AI in ways that threaten global stability. 3, building AI governance and oversight bodies. To oversee the responsible use of AI, we should establish global governance bodies similar to the International Atomic Energy Agency. Such an organization would set standards, mediate disputes, and verify compliance with international agreements. Collaboration among national governments is also vital, and by fostering cooperation, sharing research, and setting consistent safety standards, we can eventually prevent the malicious use of AI and ensure equitable access to its benefits. 4, protecting data privacy and security. AI heavily relies on data, which brings challenges related to privacy and security. International agreements must therefore prioritize the responsible handling of data, particularly in areas like personal privacy, surveillance, and cybersecurity. Furthermore, as AI becomes embedded in critical infrastructure such as healthcare, transportation, and power grids, robust cybersecurity measures are essential. So we must work together to safeguard these systems from exploitation by malicious actors. 5, promoting global equity and AI development. One of the greatest risks of AI is the potential for unequal benefits, widening the gap between developed and developing nations. International governance structures should focus on bridging this divide by ensuring fair access to AI technologies, education, and infrastructure for all countries. We must also address AI's impact on labor markets. Policies that support workforce retraining and distribute the economic benefits of AI innovation will be crucial in mitigating the economic displacement caused by automation. 6, protecting human rights in the age of AI. AI should never erode civil liberties or facilitate authoritarianism. We need international agreements to prevent abuses such as mass surveillance, social scoring systems, and political manipulation. It is equally important to protect vulnerable populations. AI systems must be designed to avoid discrimination and should not exacerbate existing social inequalities. So regulations must ensure that algorithms uphold fairness and respect for all individuals. 7, ensuring AI transparency and accountability. Governments and organizations must prioritize transparency in AI systems, particularly in sensitive sectors like law enforcement, healthcare, and finance. Standards for explainability will allow us to audit and understand AI-driven decisions. Additionally, we must establish clear liability frameworks. When AI systems cause harm, we need mechanisms to hold companies, governments, or individuals accountable. This clarity will foster trust in AI technologies while safeguarding against misuse. 8, strengthening collaboration between AI researchers and policymakers. To stay ahead of AI's rapid advancements, policymakers must work closely with AI researchers. Technical expertise will help shape regulations that address both risks and opportunities. Moreover, collaboration between governments, tech companies, and civil society is essential. Public-private partnerships can strike a balance between fostering innovation and ensuring responsible regulation, creating a future where AI serves humanity's collective interests. All that said, the rise of AI in our world is a defining moment for humanity. Its potential to improve lives is immense, but so are the risks if we fail to govern it effectively. So we must prioritize the creation of universal ethical standards, the prevention of harmful applications, the protection of human rights, and the equitable access to technology. And of course, the path forward will not always be easy, but it will be worth it. By fostering international collaboration and establishing robust governance structures, we can ensure that AI becomes a force for good, where innovation and ethics go hand in hand, so we can create a future where technology empowers all humanity and connects us more than ever before.